morning. Welcome to another episode of Papa's Workshop. These are for Adam, Brady, Luke, and Brenna. Before we get started, we need to check on my assistant. She's laying down right there. Hold on. There's my Molly. She's ready for another day of hard work, aren't you, girl? Yes. She loves to be down here, don't you? The machines don't seem to bother you, except maybe hammering. She's afraid of thunder, so maybe the hammering sounds like thunder. But you ready to go to work? All right, let's go to work. Right. Today, we're going to continue on the sitting room cabinets that we started last session. And here's our pile of wood. These are all for the frames. Remember, we're going to do a face frame for the upper cabinet and kind of a quirky frame for the lower narrow cabinet. And so the first thing I need to do is go through the joiner and make one side flat. And then we'll run through the planer and get them parallel. And then we'll alternate sides so we kind of take off the same amount on each side so the wood doesn't, sometimes you can get the wood will, if it's got moisture, it's unequal and it'll warp the board. So we try to do it equal and hopefully they'll stay the same. We got some long skinny boards, so that's hopefully not going to be a problem. I marked in red the ones that I've got the smaller pieces ganged together since that's not safe to go through the joiner and the planer with short boards. So I've marked on the edges that won't be planed, since I'll lose all my marks on the boards once we plane them. So let's get started. Okay, here's the joiner, and I don't know if I forgot to mention with that pile, I had them stacked up with little boards in between so that air could go around all four sides and the ends of the boards so that they dry equally. If you want to warp a board, lay it down on your garage floor or cement floor in the basement, let it sit there for a couple of days, and I guarantee you it'll be warped, because you've got the moisture coming up from the ground through the cement, and you've got it's air drying on the other side. You get that differential between the two sides, guaranteed to warp the board. So after I cut them, I stack them in such a way with what they call sticker boards, just little pieces of scrap, so that there's air going all the way around it. So, and like we said before, we're going through the joiner and the planer. I'm looking at the grain direction of the board so that we're not going uphill in the grain, we're going with the grain. So you'll see me do that. And so here we go. Okay, here we are ready for the planer. You see we got one side nice and smooth and it's flat, and we got the rough side. So we'll run these through and get the surfaces parallel, and then we'll start balancing the cuts, flipping them around until we get down to our 3/4. So hang on. Okay, so now we've run them all through the joiner and the planer, and you see we got smooth surface that's parallel, these two surfaces. So now what we need to do is make an edge straight and square to the surfaces. So we're going to run them through the joiner again, just one side, and again watching the grain so that I don't get any tear out. And then once we've got those three sides all squared up, we'll run through the saw and size the board to the width that we want for each one. So another quick pass through the joiner and we'll be there. Okay, so now we've run them all through the joiner, the planer, and the table saw. So we've got two sides parallel, one side at 90, and then the saw cut that to width. So before I cut them to length, I got a lot of the 1.5 inch thick ones, and I'm gonna stack them together in bunches, and I'm gonna sand off the saw marks, just quick and dirty. And it helps to have a light, a raking light. And by raking light, I mean a light that's coming in at an angle, low, and that highlights all of the imperfections in there because it creates a shadow on anything that's not even. So I'll just run the sander, and since this is all going to be painted, I'm just going to use 100 grit just to get it all relatively smooth and then the saw marks out of it, and then I'll flip it and do the other side, which is all of the planed jointed edges. I'll just do that to get the machine marks or any flaws out. Do that real quick, and then we'll be good. The table saw, we've got our 4 sides, 2 faces, and our 2 edges all square into size. So now we need to cut the ends. So before we can cut it to length, we've got to have one end that's cut square. So we're going to take all the boards and cut just one end, just a little bit, just to make it square. And then we'll set the stop block and cut them to the proper length and group them together in the same lengths. All right, here's we go. Got one end cut of everything. Now we need to cut it to length. And I'll start with the longest ones first. That way if I screw up, I've got room to go. And this sled has a stop block on it back here. And this board here needs to be 30 1/4. I batched all the stuff together and wrote on the board what it has to be, and I got them in stacks of, there we are, 30 1/4, a little bit more. There we go. So now it's just a matter of putting these, making sure that the end that I cut already goes against the stop gently so I don't knock the stop, and then we just saw them like we did before. Okay, everything is cut and the thickness is right, the width is right, and the length is right. So now we're going to concentrate on just one cabinet. Before it was easier to do all the milling and all that with the two of them, but now we're going to concentrate just on the upper cabinet, and that's the one that has the face frame. And so here is the face frame. I don't know if you can see it laying down. We've got the two vertical pieces are called stiles, and then we have 2 rails. The upper one that's going to have the holes for the wine rack, and then the bottom one. And so I've laid that out since I don't want we're going to put this together with pocket screws, and they're going to go on the back, on the inside of the cabinet, and screw into the stiles, and that'll pull it. And in some kitchen cabinets, they don't even glue that because the glue doesn't really grab on the end grain. So it's really the screws. It's a very tight, very strong joint, and quick. I mean, if it's a piece of furniture, we'd use mortise and tenon, or maybe a dovetail, depending on whether it was going to be seen or whatever. But in this case, the 2 pocket screws in each joint, and we'll be good. So let's swing the camera over there to the jig, and we'll just drill a couple holes. You can see I've got all the wood stacked up here for the other one. So let it sit there with air getting around everything until we're ready to roll on the assembling it, which will be real quick. So this is the outside, so we need to put the inside toward there, and I got to make sure I'm not going to hit where the hole is for the wine bottle. And so we just drill a couple holes. Okay, so now we got two holes at an angle that will come out in the center of this and go right into our stiles. So that's all there is to it. Let me drill the other side. We got all the holes drilled, so let me just drill one together, and I got one side clamped to the table so I don't have 2 moving parts, and then this clamp keeps them both at the same level, and the screws should pull it in tight. So let me just... Well, good morning. Here we are the next day. Apparently when I was finishing up yesterday, the phone battery died and the last part didn't get recorded. So I did finish the base frame with the pocket screws, and I went ahead and drilled using a hole saw, just because I'm going to use the same setup for the bigger holes. These are for the necks of the wine bottles, and we'll show that again because I've got to do the upper part, or the back part, with the big 3 1/4 inch diameter holes. And I've got enough. I made the board wider than it's going to be finished, so that the pilot hole, which is usually a 1/4 inch drill bit, this is the center for a hole saw. That's in this wood, so I won't be fighting the thing. So we'll do that here in a minute. But I wanted to say a quick thing about the pocket screws. You know, the kit for the pocket screws comes with this long bit, so that the drill doesn't hit the wood. And it comes with specific screws that have a flat top. They have a flat here on the bottom, so that it hits the bottom of that hole. If it was a flathead where it was tapered and then flat, that would try to wedge the hole open. So it's important. You got to use the right screws, and they have a whole chart of what the length is for the thickness of the wood you're going to be joining, and then they've got fine threads for hardwood, coarse threads for softwoods, the whole set. So, but it's very good to use those for anything temporary, for sure, like a jigs and stuff. Works really well. Works well in kitchen cabinets because they don't get stressed a lot. I wouldn't use them for making a chair, especially in softwood. That wouldn't last very long at all. It will loosen up. And hardwood may last a little bit longer, but it's not as good as a traditional woodworking joint would be, whether it be mortise and tenon or a dovetail, but it's pretty good. So anyway, enough of that. Let's get to the drill press and drill these holes, big holes. Okay, here we are at the drill press, and I've got this all set up because I did the smaller holes the same way. I've got a board spaced off the fence that is a sacrificial board that the other half of the hole saw will hit. So I'll just put this up against there. My pilot bit will hit just inside this wood, and then I've slowed this down. Hole saws have to be slower than a conventional drill bit of the same size. Not that you could get a drill bit at 3 1/4, but so that they have to go pretty slow. And of course, like anything, the bigger you get, the slower you have to go, because the outside of it's going faster than the inside of it, right? So I got it going really slow, and we'll just drill a hole here real quick. Okay, we got all the holes drilled, and I went ahead on the table saw and cut off about a 1/2 inch off the top. See, that's about where it was, and I cut that much off. And I'll probably round these a little bit, and then we'll sand the surfaces, especially the face frame, get everything even, and then I take a small roundover bit with the router and like 1/8 of an inch and kind of smooth those edges out on both of those. But basically we're ready. This is a non-traditional, since the cabinet's already there, already has sides. It's a floor to ceiling cabinet, and the sides are already there. So really all I need to do is put this face frame in with a bottom and a top. But I want to have an adjustable shelf in the middle. And so what I'm going to do is take, I got a couple of scrap pieces of 1/2 inch plywood. And what I'm going to do is put shelf pin holes in these, and then nail those, nail and glue to the sides of the cabinet. And then we'll be able to put the, if this is in the side of the cabinet, we'll put the bottom up against there and the top up against there. We'll have the holes for the shelves. And I'm going to just use a, these are shelf boards. These are coated in melamine. It's a plastic coating that's water resistant and a smooth, kind of a slick surface. So this will be inside the cabinet. You won't see this, but that way I don't have to paint it. It'll not, it's going to be water resistant. If you put wet glasses or stuff in there, it'll be good. So I'm going to use this for the adjustable shelf and for the bottom and the top. So those are already cut to, it's 10 inches inside the cabinet. So the bottom and the top are cut to 10 inches. These two pieces of plywood are 10 inches wide. The shelf I made about almost 1/8 of an inch narrower so that it's easy to maneuver. And of course I had to allow for the 1/2 inch plywood at each end, and then I get another 1/16 of an inch or so shorter so that you can move it easy. So I think the next thing we'll do is go ahead and put in the shelf pin holes in these two, and we'll be ready to start assembling this thing, or sand it and assemble it. So let me get set up for that. Well, I had a little technical difficulty. Apparently that other one didn't get recorded. I'm going to use this jig to cut those shelf pin holes. We're going to use, these are going to go on the sides of the cabinet. I'm going to use these little shelf pins that go in these holes. And since the cabinet's already there, I'm just going to add this to the sides, and we'll have an adjustable shelf in the middle. And so I used this jig to drill those holes. It goes on there like this, You got these pins on the side that rest it, keep it in there. And then after you drill one hole, you've got this little peg you can stick in, and then it holds it right there. And then the drill bit, the drill bit goes in and then spring loaded. It fits in that hole, but then it has a 1/4 inch bit goes in. You get these in different sizes. I use 1/4 inch, but they come in different diameters, so you need the appropriate bit to fit your pins. So I drilled one side, then have moved these pegs over and did the other side and did both of them the same. So now all the holes match. You'll have a level shelf. So all we need to do now is ease the corners of the thing, a little quick turn, and then sand these two. They'll be ready to be nailed in upstairs. So we basically got everything done. We just need to do the final sanding. So we're going to do the sanding of the wine rack on the spindle sander real quick and kind of ease those tops, and then we'll take the router and do that. Then we'll be ready to paint this thing and get it upstairs. Use a router. I got this little router and this little bit in there, and we're going to round off the edges of the wine rack part. So hold on. Okay, everything's been routed. I'll take some sandpaper and just knock off some of these sharp corners, and then this is going to be screwed into the top shelf like this. So I just drill some holes through the bottom, and we'll put screws in, but we're going to paint this first. And I did the front face frame, and I also, while I had the router out, I put a little bead on the bottom here. Since the sink will be down here, if you know, that's not as rough on you if you bump it. So I'll just take some sandpaper and soften these edges on the inside and anything on the top, and then this will be ready to paint. I'm going to install these top and bottom. All right, we're going to nail the sides on with a nail gun, and we're going to put a bottom and a top above and below those two side panels, and I'm going to use the pocket screws to go into the cabinet, the existing cabinet, and then I'll put a few that'll go into the face frame, that pull the face frame in tight, and that's about it. The only other thing is we're going to have an upper, sort of a mini soffit. Soffit is a little cover that's going to go above the wine rack. Just above it, there'll be a board like this with a piece of crown molding, and then this will be the top. It'll be just like that. So it'll just sit up above. So this is already cut to length, and it's got the pocket screws in it to go into this existing cabinet. I'll put some blocks in here to screw the or attach the false top in there. But these are ready to be painted. So we'll take some video of when I got all the soffit and the two sides in and painted. We'll take a picture of that, and then we'll once that's done, we will go ahead and put the top and the bottom in, the face frame in, and we'll be there. So until the next episode, that should do it.